And Isabella's going to talk about learning from China. So please.
Good afternoon. Thank you everyone for being here. It's a pleasure to meet you here actually. I've been practicing architecture and urban design in the past 13 years, both in UK and China. I've been working with East China Design Institute in Shanghai and Llewellyn Davis and MJP in London. So today I'm going to share some experience for the China projects. So you must know the tremendous Chinese growth. Here on the left, I show you the output of the construction growth in the past 5 years. It's been constantly rising. On the right one, it shows you how the output contributed. You can see the east region still have the most growth, but the central and the west is been catching up. This is where the potential market for the architectural projects. Now for the first tier cities like Beijing and Shanghai, the market has become very competitive. So more and more international architects actually move on to the second tier cities now. The Chinese built their towns with extraordinary speed. This is the new towns in Guangzhou. Imagine there's nothing there 10 years ago. Now everything happened. There's a central district with the skyscrapers, opera house, city museum, and the central libraries. And the Chinese, the countries, welcome international architects. It has the luxury of being execute both architecture and urban plannings. On the upper right, it will be the upcoming John Wells National Art Museum, and everyone knows that the CCTV. On the lower left is the Lin Orange's Shanghai Tower, most recently voted most beautiful buildings last year. Okay, before I talk about the planning process, I will mention two fundamental differences in China. The first one is the land ownership, because in China most of the land was owned by the states, and very small portions owned collectively. The land users only got a right of use the land, not own the land. This is very different. For instance, at least for residential development, it's only 70 years, but other use is only 40 to 50 years. The second one is decision maker. Because of the land ownership, actually you'll find most of the case it's the government play a very important role in terms of project decision making. Okay. There are three planning policies at a different level. The first one is a regional plan. It deals with the strategic version on a very large regional basis. The second one is strategic mass plan. It normally for a small city, a town, or even a district in a metropolitan. The third one is called the regulatory plan. It's very different in terms of planners work here. The third one, here in UK, the architects will do a context study and then test the land. But in China, actually, the plan set up very in detail. This is forms a development guidance for the following design projects. There are two regulatory plans. The first one is called indicative regulatory plan. You'll find this drawings normally by the local authorities. It's set up in details in terms of the site constraints, land boundary, land use, and even the how much you can build on the site, and the density and the building the green coverage. So the next one is construction regulatory plan. It's including actually the construction document for the infrastructure and the service. So it will be something like that. So we talk about the regulatory plans forms guidelines for the design projects, and the client still got a change, can apply for a change in terms of numbers. When you talk about numbers, it's very sensitive because it's affect the land value and also the profit margin for the development. But the plan for change is a bit tricky actually. In most cases, it's not been successful. So the working stage is very similar to IBA work stage here. You'll find that you probably need 3 applications, planning application, design development application, and construction approval. Under law, no building works should be carried out until the construction approval, but sometimes you find the groundworks already commenced. Together with the conceptual master plan, the planning and architecture practice will normally carry out in China. By the way, I have to mention the regulatory plan, actually it's the local authority's responsibility, so no other architecture planning firms can be involved, but because they have like a planning and the design department within it. Nowadays they have a popular, they commission an international architect to do a conceptual master plan, and after it is consented, it will transfer to the regulatory plan like this. So this area shows you how the international firms will be involved in the working stages in China. You'll find the international firms normally will not involved in the construction stage. That's because 2 reasons. Financial viability, and under law, the international firms have been partnership with the local architects to commence those kind of works. I talk about some case studies. This is Shongjiang University Town, Shanghai. I was working on as a project architect back in 2000 with East China Architecture Design Institute. This is follow a competition route. Icardi team with German architects win the competition. This is the master plan we prepare for the regulatory master plan. You can see. I tried to show you. You can see there are 4 universities sit orthogonally from west to the east. And there's a central zone. This is the central zone to show the shared facility like stadium and central library. The student accommodations sit on the north of the small river, and the teaching units sit on the south of it. And there's a linear park will form open space of the whole universities. Here's the teaching quarter. You see the library take the center stage of the entrance square where the teaching units are surrounded it. There are some CGIs show how the subjective architecture will be in the planning document. So the master plan was done very quickly and on time, and the client is really, really happy. And then the local authority was take over the rest of the work. So they commissioned the other architect to do the design work. And it was built very quickly because the competition starts February, and the first stage of university opened the year later in September. So it's very, very fast. I haven't walked back to the campus since I left the country, but I sometimes see this become a TV set. So I'm not very impressed. You can see this the areas recently. You can see the whole the framework is still keep to the original master plan. You see very clearly for universities where the student accommodation is, where the teaching units is. But I found that the development in each of the campus actually didn't follow the original plan, especially this one. The second left, it seems very ill-fit to the rest of the universities, and then it's lost the scale. It's massive scale with bizarre road network. And I later was told actually that the universities change hands, so the client must have a new brief, and the regulatory plans fail to enforce. I show you some of the architecture here that's from the universities. So some contemporary, some They say Chinese very European style. Okay, that's what happens. I've told this is actually for the University of International Studies, because the vice mayor at that time, he's come up with the idea that each building should have given identity, can reflect the style of the country, different countries. So you'll see that must be for the Middle East study and some other studies. So that's actually quite good project to reflect how the mass plan will be developed in China. You see the policies actually give the client certain freedom to develop in detail. And the question is how the architects can use this opportunity to enhance the plans. And you see the government have a strong influence for the decision maker. How the architects actually can convince the client to keep the project on the right track. Second project, the following two projects is architectural projects. I work as a project manager with MJP. I'm very grateful MJP let me use this as samples. I started explore the China market back in 2010. This is the first competition we've done. In China, most state-funded projects will go through the competition route. So it's paid competition, by the way, which is good. And it gives normally only 7 weeks to develop. There's a professional jury to judge each of the scheme. They normally will choose 2 to the finals, and the client will normally commission one of them. So this is the museum in Guangzhou. The Guangzhou is actually it's quite heritage city. You see our site on the right upper right, the little red dot. It's next to the beautiful conservation area, and the city itself is dotted with very beautiful Chinese gardens. So the idea, the concept comes from the ways the wall was, the unique ways of the wall was articulated in Chinese garden to create a dramatic space. And we used the wall to form the grid, and the building was loosely woven into it. So I also want to talk about the CGIs for the competitions. For the competition in China, actually the submission requirement is quite high. They ask for several CGIs, physical models, and sometimes films and multimedia, PowerPoint multimedia presentation. Our models and CGIs made in China for the cost reason. There are quite several good CGI artists in China. They provide a very good service, very reliable, punctual. But model maker have to be cautious, because you have to monitor day by day, because they sometimes will misinterpret the architectural drawings and get the things wrong. The printing and the binding service is outstanding in China. They open 24 hours a day. So you have to, when you rush for the submission, have to be rush for the submission on time. You'll get it done. So our concept well received during the competition. The judges likes it, and the local planning authorities likes it, and it go to the finals with the Japanese scheme, which on the right. You can see there's a very different approach these two scheme takes. The lotus is a concept. The Japanese architect gave it to their scheme. They said that their buildings looks like locust. However, the judges think locust maybe not quite relate to the Guangzhou city. But the piano, it's quite interesting that we found out later. It's the client invented for us for the public inquiry. I understand it's well intended. They might think actually building have to look like something to be understood in China. So that's very interesting. It's how the general public perceive a piece of architecture in China. The mayor, at the end, likes the lotus, so the client had to buy it. So we didn't win at the end. The another important reason, because the Japanese firm had one project done in China before, but nonetheless, it's quite a success to get onto the ladder in the Chinese market for the practice. So the next year, 2011, I come across this competition, the Daily News Construction Culture Center in Guangzhou. This is very high-end competition with very good fees, just in the limelight. And the clients in the media, you got very good publicity. Because our previous work done in China, we made a very successful bidding. So we got a short list with other well-known big international architects. I think Farrell is one of them. So in the brief meeting, very interestingly, the client said, the client stressed that they said, we want very simple, sophisticated buildings, but not like the Opera House opposite the Pearl River. So what's wrong with the Opera House? That's the Opera House. This was known like two pedals. It's very dynamic. It got to contour the landscape, so link the Central Boulevard with the riverside. I quite like it. The internal space is very beautiful and dramatic, I would say. But it comes with a very big price tag. The original budget is 850 million Chinese yuan. And when the final cost reveals, it's raised to 1.38, which caused a big public stir. And I show you some photos. You can see some defects in the cladding on this picture, and more details on the sides. You can tell the subcontractor didn't do the proper work here. They probably haven't got the experience to work on such complicated building before, and then they really struggled. In China, material and workmanship is not good. No way good near here. Because I work on most of the China project. I found most of the material, they haven't got the certificate and haven't got even the information data. So if you work in China, architects have to be very cautious about the choice of materials, what is available, what kind of skill level they have. The other challenge The other problem is the procurement. I would say most of the Chinese projects take the procurement back in UK is like a design build contract here. So the level of the international architects involved after tender can be quite limited. So if you work in China and the building will carry your name, make sure you have a certain level of control into construction stage. So let's back to the Daily News Center. This time the client likes it, and this among their favorites, but the jury didn't like it. The reason is, from the mega structure they mentioned, they worry about the cost of the structure can be let the project going wrong in terms of the budgets. But somehow it's a quite good experience for the MJP in terms of the marketing point of view, because the scheme was published in the media, on the telly, and online on the newspaper. And because of these two projects, later there's another Chinese developer was brought in, and he convinced that this two projects actually can lead MJP work on the other Chinese projects, and they'll have the first project done in China this year, hopefully. So, in conclusion, China offers a great opportunity for the architects, Chinese firms. They like the contributions from all over the world for their urbanizations. The opportunities are huge, and they come with challenge as well. That will include the cultural differences, the planning process, and materials, skills, sometimes even communication. I guess if you work in China, I guess you have to make the most of the positives and to achieve your goal. So that's all. Just a quick mention. I'm come from MY Architects, and we do some small projects and also work as a consultant. So if you have any questions, I'm very welcome to speak to me, and I'm very happy to assist.